some credits here.
We are getting set up on our first big live with our guest here. So hold on one second. We want to make sure we are rocking and rolling.
Share to
Here we go. We are live now at Groundswell. So we're here with, well, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself. So obviously I'm Trevor from Ideal Impact Media.
Yes, and I'm Ardell Alisea with Propel Professionals. We are your hosts for, what are we calling this, by the way?
Ooh, we need a name. That's a good point. We should get a name.
Eventually, but not right now. More importantly, we have with us...
I'm Brad Brewer, Paul Davis Restoration Business Development Manager.
And Nicole McPhee, marketer for Paul Davis Restoration.
Yes, and what are we talking about today? We're talking about being prepared, right?
Yeah, pre-loss prevention planning. Is that it? Is
The
that
4 Ps,
Yes.
really.
the four Ps?
Well, you just made that up.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, there's something new. All right, so I guess that's where we're starting today, especially with this tropical storm and potentially hurricane flying on in from, I assume from the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, the Dominican Dorian.
Yeah, I have not planned for this at all. By the way,
No,
I don't even know the direction that the storm is coming in on. So
I'm acutely aware, as I'm sure you guys are. Mm-hmm. So Dorian is supposed to be making landfall basically right here on Sunday around 2 a.m. Maybe a little bit south of here. The cone of uncertainties looks pretty likely. We're going to get some amount of impact. So, water, rain, how's it going to affect businesses? That's kind of the most urgent thing. We're going to go a lot more beyond that, though, than just hurricane preparedness.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to dive a little bit into how businesses, basically you're wearing a lot of hats, how businesses could possibly rely on specialists to provide that extension of your own core functionality, right? So then it allows you to focus on what you do best and what your employees do best. So kind of like outsourcing, but to people that are experts in their fields, which is who we have here today. So the first thing is, I'm totally unprepared. I've already said that. What do I need to know as a business, right? So I have a physical location, servers on the ground. I'm ready for disaster to strike. What do I need to know to get me started?
You need your traditional planning the same way that you would prep your home for a hurricane. I don't know how long you've been in Florida and how many hurricanes
Only a decade, so I'm totally...
Okay, yeah, that's it. So the same thing that you're physically going to do to your home, you need to do the same things to your business. Get things up off the ground, away from windows, board them up, all of your traditional hurricane prep to keep your physical property and content safe.
All right, okay, so now when it comes to, so where do you guys kind of come in on the planning process? So, I'm a business owner, I'm sitting out there, minding my P's and Q's, we're focusing just on marketing and sales. What is that thing that's going to trigger my reaction where I'm just going to be like, hey, you know what, this, I already forgot this tropical storm's name, what was it? Dorian, what a fella. So Dorian's coming in. I notice him flying into Florida. Suddenly, I'm like, oh my goodness, my business is totally unprepared. How do I know to call you guys?
Yeah, well, for the folks that haven't done anything yet, if a hurricane comes and you find that you've got water coming in through your ceiling, all the restoration companies in the area are going to be totally, on the ground, ready to go, as get to folks as fast as they can. But if you've got some time to prepare well before the hurricane comes, the best thing that we can offer really is two things. One is called a first priority agreement, which is where we study the property ahead of time. And a lot of business owners, you wouldn't operate without the right licenses, you wouldn't operate without the right insurance, without the right things in place, legal structure. So it just makes sense that you also wouldn't operate without a plan for unexpected damage. And the best way to prepare for unexpected damage is to work with a company like us. We can come in and study the property and know exactly where things are, with the water main, the electricity, all that stuff. And that cuts down on the time that you might be interrupted by that damage.
Right. So so it sounds like I can't just call you right before Dorian hits and expect you to have maximum effectiveness on my business. When's a good time for me as a business owner to kind of make that phone call and set up an appointment?
Yeah, right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
You heard him. Look at the bottom of your screen for the number.
Maybe not this moment, but let's talk about that. So we know we're 4 or 5 days away from some sort of impact, and that's going to impact your business. Obviously, you can't be out there while the storm is raging. What does that look like when they call you and say, hey, I know this is coming. What do I need to do? And what can you all do that's going to make a difference in getting them back up and running as fast as possible?
Yeah, well, everything from, again, if it's a first priority customer, which we kind of say, hey, these are folks we've agreed to be right on top of as soon as the problem comes. Like Nicole said, there are lots of things they can do ahead of time, to try to board things up, and these are commonly known. Try to protect your property as much as you possibly can, and protect your people. Safety is the number one, of course. But if you do find that, oh man, yeah, water's coming in, or this pipe broke, or we've got fire here, you've got emergency response folks that can come if it's a fire deal, and we're often right behind. Think of ourselves often as a first responder too. So we offer things like free board ups, and we can tarp to temporarily protect rain from coming in. But then it's the quick action of our drying out process and our cleaning up that is, people don't realize a lot of the cost of these things happens if they didn't call soon enough. And a couple of days of water sitting on a floor and a wall turns into tons of reconstruction costs.
Soaking in and mildew and mold,
right.
And it's just growth.
Whereas,
especially in the heat of the summer.
Yeah, and the first priority plan, because everything's in place beforehand, you don't have that sitting and waiting time. We've worked with businesses and things like that before where we're ready to get in and do the work, and because everything's so scattered after a storm, there's no one there to sign the paper to allow us into that property to do the work. We don't have an email to get it electronically sent to them for a signature. So here we are ready to work, and because all those things weren't laid out beforehand, something as simple as we need to know who can authorize us to come in here and start working in this building.
Okay.
So I've leveled a shelf in my day, so I feel like I'm a pretty self-sufficient homeowner and business owner. So, I've downloaded a Google template. Front and back is full of a checklist. I have my water from Walmart. I bought all of it. Don't bother checking. Right? So
it's all gone.
So I'm ready. Boom, I'm ready. What I'm calling you. What are you going to do that I can't do myself? Right? What kind of knowledge do you guys have?
Well, we definitely have. When you're referring to the storm is coming, it's about to hit, and you're gonna call us beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or just give me the stuff. Like, I know things, you know things. I assuming that you know way more than me. But like I said, I level the shelf. I'm pretty confident.
Okay, you're confident that if water's pouring into your your business,
Yeah,
you're just like, oh, it's fine. I'll just put something up there, hammer some nails.
Just a little bit of super glue,
Yeah, it's definitely way more extensive than that. You cannot look at a wall and tell me that there is or isn't water in it. You need the specialized equipment. You need the professionals to come in and take a look at that. When you see baseboard peeling away from your walls, you probably have a really big problem. All you're going to see is that there's a little baseboard peeling away. But yeah, I would not recommend handling it on your own.
Definitely no super glue. All right. I gotta make some returns at Walmart.
Super glue. No, don't buy that little $30 dehumidifier and put a little box fan on it.
So it's interesting. So I think for the primary story here is like for business owners, right? Stay focused on marketing. Stay focused on sales, right? And when it comes to stuff like pre-loss planning, disaster restoration, disaster repairs. That's where you really want to outsource to the experts, people who are far more knowledgeable, that are going to know where your building is weak, where your gaps are, right, and help you actually lay out a plan so that you have peace of mind when you walk away. And you're going to Orlando, or like I did, Cleveland, Georgia. Thank you, Alabama. Got really close to you. Never again.
So what you're saying is have a partner and have a relationship,
yes,
possibly before you think you need that help, and that could be for anything, right? We obviously, most topical is this tropical storm, possibly hurricane, could be very devastating for businesses and for people in this area, but that applies to anything, right?
Right.
Form these partnerships and know about these companies and their services, and they'll be happy. I mean, you guys are very happy to form this and provide help and assistance free of charge, right? You guys are just building that relationship. You're consulting, making sure that it minimizes the loss before it happens, and that you're ready to go after it happens. But you're saying we could apply that to a lot of things in business.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times where I come into a business and I find that they've been pushed up to the point where they're forced to take action, and that leads to a lot of critical mistakes where they end up going with like the first vendor or like the first vendor that was referred to from a friend, and they haven't been able to do their research, meet the people that they need to meet, and establish a relationship, because relationships are built on trust, and trust isn't something that's won over a phone call, over a sales pitch in a PowerPoint presentation. It's won over handshakes, it's won over meals, it's won over the exchange of ideas. So for me, when I develop relationships with vendors, I'm meeting them multiple times, and it takes a really long time, but the people that I work with, I trust implicitly that when I bring them onto a job site, that they're not only going to protect their name and protect the client, but they're also going to protect my name as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why we have you guys on the show today, because that's the kind of camaraderie that we've gotten from the few times that we've met, but to very many more, because they're going to save my business from water damage and pipes bursting inside my laptop.
Right. So speaking of pipes bursting, so beyond
sorry, that was
hurricanes,
inappropriate.
Yeah, be careful over here. You might get things riled up. So beyond a hurricane, let's talk more about how businesses could be exposed to disaster, how you guys can help them with that, avoid some things, prevent some things, but also how to be prepared and respond to that, which is really the 365, what is our hurricane season here? It's basically at least 90 to 120 days of like the meat of hurricane season. But outside of the one or two storms that usually make some sort of impact in Brevard County every year, or at least they have been, what are some other things that businesses need to be prepared for that is really not in their mind at all? Like everyone thinks and knows hurricanes, but what are these other risks that are lurking?
Yeah, I mean, these are not happy things that happen to your homes or business, so you're not going to sit there and dwell on like, oh, let's see, so I could have an electrical fire, or you could have a pipe burst in the wall, or if you're in a multi-story, somebody 3 stories up like just left the sink running and now there's water flooding your business. You don't think about these things that could happen, but they do occur. So any sort of damage that can occur to a property, like our general statement is water, fire, mold, storm, trauma scene. It's very extensive, the amount of damage that a property can incur. And then a lot of times people try to self-perform, like you said, self-perform these works. They don't realize how extensive that damage can get. They don't know what's hiding behind walls. That's why you need specialists to come in with the appropriate equipment to really see what's happened, because we know plenty of people who've been like, oh yeah, there was some water, I got a shop vac, sucked it up, put a fan on it, like it's fine. Well, 3 months later, now the entire interior of your walls is covered in mold. Like that could have completely been avoided if they would have called in some professionals on day one, and we would have had to dry it in 2 or 3 days.
And so tell us a little bit more about that, as far as how should they contact you before they've even had a disaster? Will you guys go and meet with them and visit with them? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's a lot of moving parts in business property management. So we have a lot of good relationships with property management companies, with insurance brokers, so commercial brokers who insure the property, and then the property owner themselves, who's the ultimate decision maker. But if we can get a few folks to the table and have the conversation about how beneficial it is just to have this free service where we come in and we study the building structure, we know the people, the facilities manager, whoever's there, and we get all that stuff ahead of time. Our operations team, which I've never seen any better, and I've been around for a little bit, but they're so quick to respond and so good. But if they have knowledge of the building ahead of time, They know how many dehumidifiers and air movers and what type of equipment to throw on the truck, and can get there that much faster. As opposed to, like, imagine this nightmare scenario. You didn't do this maybe as a property manager or as a property owner, and the problem happens, and now you're on Google looking up, what do I do when this happens? And you see all these different companies, and you're kind of spinning the wheel of, I don't know, maybe this one, and well, they're out in Orlando, so it's going to be a long time. So if you have, so that's why we really want to develop actual partnerships with property management companies, with brokers, who we have these agreements set ahead of time, and they know, all right, this happened, we're calling these guys, we know they're going to be there within a couple hours, we know they know who to talk to, where to go, what to do, and all of that can really make a huge difference between, hey, we just had to dry this out, now everything's fine, or it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars to get you back up and running, and weeks out where you can't operate your business like you want to. That's a pretty big difference.
And these aren't just verbal communications. We don't just come and look at the property and then walk away. It's when we start building this relationship, there is an actual, we say first priority agreement, but it literally is a printed, and then everybody gets digital copies of this agreement. So we have names, phone numbers, contact information, accesses, where the shutoff valves are, and then that's available to everyone within your company and also everyone within our company, because we don't have the same technicians on call every single weekend. Obviously, they have lives. But that information is available to whoever's on call that weekend. That manager, that lead technician has all that information. They pull it up. They know exactly who to call, where to go, what to do, and all of that saves so much time. And then that time is the least amount of damage that happens to that property. Time is money.
Yeah,
for sure.
Very, and it also makes me think of a lot of businesses know what the exposure is as far as being hacked or having issues with their IT. If there's computers go down, that's ever present in a lot of people's minds, but not present is some of the physical damage that can really happen, and they don't have that partner the way they may have an IT company that is at the hip, or they're regularly helping them out.
So that's actually a really good point. So when I think about disaster preparedness, I'm not only thinking about a disaster plan in terms of my physical space, but also the potential vendors that I might need to bring in. And I feel like you guys would have a really good handle on that if you walked into my business and you saw, like the IT systems, and you say, hey, you know what, we have a really great IT vendor that we work with. We've been working with them for years, and they can really help in a disaster case scenario. Have you thought about backing up your servers? Have you thought about centralizing your information? Off camera, we were talking about documents, right? And the importance of
having digital copies of your documents. When Matthew came through, we were actually so thankful. Our physical building lost power, and we had some generators that could run enough, but we don't have a full backup generator for our company, so we had to physically take our computers and our printers and all of that and go work at a remote location. And if we didn't have all of our customers' files and documents, and if we didn't have all of that digitally in a cloud, which I'm not an IT person, that is, we are property damage specialists, that's why we hire IT companies to handle stuff like that, but we had all that available, so we literally just picked up our stuff, moved to another location, had our phones forwarded to the cell phones, and we were able to run remotely.
She actually left out the most important part. Her company has sat phones, which I think are really cool and a definite necessity for every business. Even if you're a one-person business, I'm getting a sat phone is what I'm saying.
I think you just think you're like a spy, or
I just want to be able to access things at the weirdest times. So just be like, hello, yeah, I don't understand why the movie theater's not open. I can connect perfectly.
Just trying to be a commando after the storm, I see.
But if you're a retail or you're in a hotel or something like that, you can't just pick up and continue operating like normal somewhere else. So what's really important also is to have people who are able to be creative in their solutions that they provide. So thinking about hotel rooms, if there's one section of the hotel that's been damaged, that doesn't mean the hotel has to close down. If we can come in and put some temporary boards up to close off one little wing, keep all those other rooms up and running, or dry out the bottom in time, like there's a lot that can be done I'm impressed, and I'm kind of thinking of this from an outside looking in, but I've been impressed that, you know, sometimes you hear, well, that company's, they're so nice, they're like really good with people, but you know, they're hit or miss on their, you know, whether they actually come through. Or another company, oh man, these guys are they're really good at their jobs, but they're jerks, you know, or they're so expensive. You shouldn't have to make that choice. I don't think, if you're a business owner, like, okay, do we want the nice guy or the experts who are rude? We've made it our effort and our aim through the whole company culture to really offer both of those.
Yeah.
You know,
and it requires time to find that. Like, you know, you can't just go on Google and just the very first 5-star review that you see on there, and it's got 100 reviews. You can't just call that company and expect them to go all the way for you. You know, if you have a relationship with somebody, especially a sales rep, you know, and you're in constant contact with them, they know your name, they know your business in and out. You know, I feel like I can set myself up for the best chance for the best possible customer service. Like Verizon, I call those people all the time. They must have records on records, but, you know, because I feel like because I call them so much, you know, they escalate me to supervisors when I ask.
Oh, this guy's calling again.
Yeah, they know, go directly to the top with it, you know, and they honestly give me a lot of great deals and a lot of great breaks, and, you know, that's a huge, massive enterprise. You know, the people that support your small and medium-sized businesses care like 20 times that, right? So it's just about taking the effort to take the time out of everybody's busy day, right, and just make the plans and set the plans in place to actually establish these connections. They're just as viable as and important as any kind of marketing or sales connections that you might have.
Yeah, and it's important to know who plays what role beforehand. Like in our pre-loss planning with a business, we know, like we said before, like who can authorize work, who can do this, who can let us in. But it's the same on our end. Like, you get to meet our people, because obviously property damage is not a one-man show. You have your account manager who builds the relationship beforehand. You have your emergency services department manager, your mitigation manager dealing with the items in the home. There's a contents manager if reconstruction's involved. You have an estimator and a project manager. So there's a lot of faces that do different roles. So if that relationship is built beforehand, we know who plays what role in your company, but then you also know who plays what role in ours.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
we were just yesterday at the home of a customer. We had just finished a job with them up in Merritt Island, and they were telling us their story. And they kept remembering names of our staff that had come in at different parts of the process. Oh, that's when Steve happened. Oh, and then our contents folks, they came and did this. And oh yeah, and you remember. And this is in the middle of kind of this disaster tragedy, but it was so really refreshing to hear that they knew our people by name, that they had such a good experience, that they were just kind of like, wow.
That's interesting.
On the other side.
That's an unintended side effect, right? Like an emotional uplifting, like you're going through a hard time, and like you have this team that comes up and supports you. It's not just with X's and O's, but it's like really like, hey, you know what? I actually had it for what this was, a pleasurable experience.
Right. These were the people that helped me in the most difficult of times.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
right.
it ends up being very personal, whether it's your home that we're referring to that's been damaged or your business. This is your property, your belongings, your livelihood. Like, what we come into is very personal. So it just makes sense that those more personal relationships are formed during those tough times.
Awesome.
If we're not passionate about restoration, what are we doing?
Well, I can see that for sure.
That's true. Yeah, it's interesting. Some wholesome content here. I was telling you guys that I was reading a Deloitte study earlier that said that the number one contributor to productivity is an employee who is able to do what they do best every single day. So if you have vendors or employees or contractors that are passionate about what they do and they get to do it day in and day out, guess what? You have a successful organization.
Yeah, you're saying let people specialize and be great at the things they're passionate about.
That's right.
Don't spread people thin. Don't spread your own company thin.
Right.
Don't be a jack of all trades.
Right.
Figure out what it is you do great and that you love, and do it, and then find other people to do the other things.
Right. The actual percentage was a 38% increase in productivity across an organization.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So is that Is that? Are we good?
I think we're good. I
don't know. I haven't been keeping track.
I think, and I don't see a timer on here. Yeah, exactly. You're out of coffee.
That's how I manage my time. Like
how many cups?
Coffee.
Okay. This is a 1 cup of coffee project. This is a 7 cup of coffee project. Well, I think this was a really great conversation with Paul Davis of the Space Coast. You guys do restoration, water, fire, mold, storm, human bodies.
Yeah, we do that too.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Brad and Nicole, everybody.
That's right. Call them now.
Well, now, the number's on the button. No, it's not. We don't have that technology.
Dorian is on his way. He's going to mess some stuff up.
Click the link.
That's right. Exactly.
Right? It's up on this, right?
It's clacked. It's in there. So.
Right. Also, click on my link. I've got cool stuff on my page too.
Right. Arnell, Propel Professionals.
_professionals.
Well, I tagged you up too.
Oh, it's up there.
So
it's
you're
up there.
good.
It's up there.
And Trevor Barone, Ideal Impact Media. We're going to try to bring you more business professionals to help so you can run your business and be great at what you do and let the other people help you so you can focus on what you're great at.
Help me help you.
And with that, I think we're done for Tuesday. What do you think?
Yeah, awesome. Definitely. I think this was a great take. Can we shoot it again?
Yes.
I think I messed up.
Please no. I need more coffee then.
Somebody wanted to see a lot more of this wall and less of the table, so I'm going to give him a little pan of this wall here. Oh,
yeah,
surf
surf guy.
Wall. Maybe I should do this.
He's surfing a wave on a skateboard.
Start with the wall and then come on down to our.
It's a very unique skill.
Very intelligent group here. Okay, all right. Now that I'm not in it.
Yeah.
All right.